Hello, everyone, and welcome to Groupthink. Groupthink is our dialogue series at CU where we pick a topic and talk about whatever feels meaningful. My name is Madison, and I'm a high school senior from Verdigris, Oklahoma, and I'm joined by some amazing community members and lots of new faces. Now they're going to take a moment to introduce themselves.
Madison, do you want to, should we start just like calling on people? So you have an order like on your Zoom right panel. Do you want to just like say like, then we have Allison, then we have, just so that
Okay.
it speeds.
So you're next.
What?
You're next.
Okay, cool. Hey, I'm Gary. I'm one of the co-founders of CU. I'm calling in from New York City.
Okay, Allison.
Hi, my name is Allison. I'm a sophomore in high school, all the way from Ohio.
All right, and Thanasi.
Hi, my name is Thanasi. I'm another one of the co-founders of CU, and I'm also calling in from New York City.
Okay, and Nayeli.
I'm Nayeli. I'm a high school junior and calling from Puerto Rico.
All right, and Lara.
Hi, my name is Lara. I'm a college freshman, and I'm calling from Cary, North Carolina.
All right, and Sara.
Hi, I'm a high school junior, and I'm calling from Maine.
Okay, Ari.
Hi, my name is Ari. I'm a high school senior, and I'm calling in from Westchester, New York.
Okay, and Prokriti.
Hi, I'm Prokriti. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm calling in from Washington State.
And last but not least, Ashley.
Hey, I'm Ashley. I'm a high school senior, and I am also calling in from Washington. I'm in Vancouver right now.
All right, Gary, I like that system. That worked pretty well. So now we're gonna do the word association. You can say 1 to 3 words that you associate with 2020. Just shout them out and I will write them down.
What group thinking number are we on right now?
16, maybe? I'm not for sure.
Can you
Yeah, I can check.
check the previous notes?
Mhm. Yeah, 16.
Yeah, anyone can shout out their words first.
Challenging.
Acceleration.
Chaotic.
Unprecedented.
Growth.
Okay, going back a little bit, if you all could like explain your words too.
Oh.
That was my bad. I forgot to mention that. So Prokriti, you can go ahead and
Sure. Challenging, well, for several obvious reasons, I feel like. One, we're all in the middle of a pandemic. Most of us are doing school online. I know doing like science from home is like really hard because I can't like, actually like touch the things I'm working with. And not being able to see friends or like go over to, see family. That's like, yeah, pretty challenging.
I said acceleration because I think that it's accelerated every aspect of our lives and of the things in our lives and of technology and of human growth and all that stuff.
I said chaotic because like, especially in the beginning of the year, every month there was something new happening and it was just causing chaos in every different aspect in every state. Everybody was freaking out because first there was the quote unquote threat of World War III, and then the virus, and then the murder hornets, and it was just chaos.
I said unprecedented because I think that nobody, no matter how old you are, what generation you're in, has ever dealt with a year like this before. And so we all had to think about how to deal with these problems that we've never had to deal with as a group, and we were all kind of unified, but it was all new to us, which I think was pretty interesting, and that's why I chose unprecedented.
I said growth because of how, everyone, right here, I feel like 2020 in general just had made us like grow ourselves as a person and maturing, I guess, just say so. So yeah.
I'm gonna add divisive. Um, and on the other hand, it's also unifying in a way because we all kind of have like the major illnesses and things to focus on, but like divisive as in like the political climate of the United States right now is like incredibly, I don't know, like near explosive at this point. The whole mask or not mask debate, everything is up for debate at this point. And I feel like it's getting more and more aggressive too. So yeah, I feel divisive is also a decent word.
I would say hopeless and hopeful. I think throughout the whole year, we've had times where we felt hopeless, like when we'd get a vaccine or when we'd get out of quarantine and stuff like that. But we've also had hope in how the communities have worked together in order to better the situation for everyone, and kind of how everyone has been working on a solution and like working on a vaccine and stuff like that. And not just with COVID, but in terms of like Black Lives Matter also, and like all of the other things that have arisen during the past year.
I'll go ahead and say like reality. I think it helped everybody see the reality of the world in a lot of different ways, how things work, why things are the way they are, how people really think about each other, if people are empathetic enough to wear a mask, stuff like that.
I'd also would add change because, especially with this year, there are a bunch of people that went through personal growth that they wouldn't have gone through before, and they had to change the way they did everything from graduations to work, school, everything had to change.
I'll add the word telling, because kind of going off Thanasi's point, I think that because of so much of the all the stuff we had to go through this year, we were able to tell a lot about ourselves and our character, and also the character of people around us. Like, do you wear a mask because you care about others, or do you choose not to? I feel like we were all able to kind of see ourselves and see others in a different light.
I say giving, because I feel like throughout the whole entire pandemic and everything, everyone has been like giving back to the communities and helping each other out. And yeah.
Sarah and Ashley, do you want to share your words?
Yeah, I put resilience and love. I think resilience because, like a lot of people touched on, there has been a lot of change, and we've really needed to find ways to adapt, and really make the most out of the situations that we were put in. And love because I think the circumstances just call for like a widened sense of self and just a need to care for each other, like in mutual aid. And yeah, and I think just this year, even personally, like I've learned so much about like what it means to like connect with people digitally, like strengthened relationship with my family. And so like for me personally, like love has just been a really big theme.
I would say like unifying like and like dividing, because like with the mask versus no mask, you really kind of had the opportunity to like see how people think. And I feel like that's divided a lot of people, but in a lot of ways, like with my friends, I've become even closer with them because I've had the opportunity and the time to get to know them better.
Gary, do you have your word?
Yeah, I'm gonna put apocalypse. Not necessarily the definition that is the complete final destruction of the world, but more of the original Greek root of that means uncover, right? So this was the great uncovering of so many broken systems that we had that weren't able to withstand. Um, I wouldn't say that this was even close to as bad as of a pandemic as it could be, which is really scary because we have a lot of work to do. But more information allows us to make things better.
And for mine, I'm going to be saying things similar to what everyone else has been, but I'll just say shock and change. Like, I experienced a lot of shock just because of events that unfolded in the world and growth and realizations that I'd had within myself. And the same goes for change. A lot of change within, not only our country and democracy, but the rest of the world and within myself as well. So if that's everyone, we can go ahead and move on to the actual discussion. So if anyone has a question to pose, we can go ahead and get started.
Or a provocation, like a statement that they may or may not fully believe, but would love to hear people's responses to.
I can.
Oh, go.
You can go ahead.
No, yours.
Thank you. I was just gonna say that I want to like speak on a personal experience of mine and see if anyone relates to it or maybe doesn't, has something to add to it. I feel like I have had the somewhat rare experience of really like blossoming during my time in quarantine. I feel like I really needed that time for myself, and since I got it and I wasn't in school as much and wasn't doing as much work, I really got to know myself more and got to cultivate really good habits. So I kind of wanted to see if anyone relates to that or doesn't. And yeah, because I think it's a pretty interesting idea, like amid such a difficult year, just having the ability to kind of cultivate good habits and flourish.
I'm hearing silence, so I guess I'm gonna go. So I definitely have, and I honestly feel like it's such an odd experience where everyone has been saying so many negative things about the year, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, 2020 is finally over," um, and I'm like, I don't have, and like my feelings about the new year coming are probably different than a lot of people's like sudden relief. I'm like, nothing's changed, but um I personally, I've always like been like hyper aware of like time moving. I guess like sometimes I'll like look at the clock and be like, how is it that I'm already here? But for me, I honestly like I'm a sophomore this year, so 2 years away from college, and I have honestly really appreciated the last 10 months or so to like, spend time with my parents. I'm an only child, I don't have siblings. So my parents, I guess, I think it started to hit them because they're like, what are we going to do when you go to like regular school? And then after that, it's like, what are we going to do when you go to college? Because again, only child. So like once I'm gone, the house is going to get a whole lot quieter. So yeah, like just the recognizing that, and like 2020 has been a weird time warp in a way where it feels like things are going really fast but like really slow at the same time. So like the 2 months where like our school like couldn't really figure out how to get the online learning thing happening like off the bat, um like we just didn't have school for 2 months. So that was me just, what do I do when I have an endless amount of free time? I ended up painting and cooking. So I figured out that, okay, these are two things that I'm really interested in that I didn't know that I liked before. So yeah, I found myself like being able to like ground myself in new hobbies that I discovered during quarantine and like better manage my feelings and like stress. So yeah.
Yeah, I heard like a lot of people kind of blossom during quarantine, and it made me think of like it's just so weird how humans think about everything. But like my friend was like with the 2020, he was like, our monkey brains don't understand that like we just made a number and then the number changes, but nothing really changes. But it also just made me think about maybe we're meant as humans to like take a lot more time off and not have so much shit to do all the time. Am I allowed to say that word here? Um, but like not have as much stuff to do because it really forces you, being alone and not having constant stimulus like we're trained to have in normal life now, forces you to be introspective and forces you to grow. So I just wonder if the human experience was meant to have a lot more time of um, self-reflection, introspection, and just like being more alone or with the people you love than what we've created it. And I wonder if the reason that we've pushed ourselves to be so super social in this culture is because we're really scared of what happens when we spend time with ourselves without knowing.
I know just like personally, like it was a very, I don't want to say like negative, but like there wasn't a lot of positivity going on with like new things like every single month. And I felt like this time, like it gave me the time to look within myself. And I know that I've come out like a completely different person. I'm definitely way more like positive, like looking for like the positives in the situation instead of like, oh, this is going wrong. I'm like, oh, well, this is going right because there haven't been too many things this year that went well. So it's just giving me the time to like look at a situation and be able to pick out the positive parts so I can keep going and enjoy myself.
I would say that I have changed a lot also in quarantine because we've been in quarantine here for almost a year. It's almost March again, which is crazy to think about. And looking back at the person I was March 2020, and the person I'm going to be March 2021 is very different. And I've also been able to take up different hobbies like baking also, and spending more time on music and things that I really enjoyed. And I feel like if we were still in school, like full time, um, we would have, I wouldn't have been able to go through those mental things because I would have been focusing so much on trying to get the grades, trying to get all my time to study for my tests. And since I'm a junior, I have to start thinking about my college stuff now. And especially where I live, we actually had more time off school because in the beginning of the year, we had earthquakes. So we started our second semester in February. We only had about a month or so in actual school.
Can I pose a question? Are we allowed to do that? Like really, like,
Yeah.
do you think, do you all think that we naturally grow year to year? And the only reason we're all like, oh my God, we grew so much is because we have nothing else to distract us from noticing it. Like we're hyper aware of it. Or do you think that this was like, or do you think it was a little bit of both?
I definitely think a little bit of both. Because like I know I grow year to year based on like my experiences, but the thing with is how you mentioned, like, you know, the constant stimulus is we're constantly distracted by something or other, right? And that means because a lot of self growth is recognizing like things about yourself and like working to like either fix it or own it. So like for me, like for a lot of my life I've been a very like social person, and like everyone described me as an extrovert. And I had like this whole thing with a group of friends last year. But I went into quarantine like already kind of like distant from people. But what I realized like during quarantine, like probably just like a month or two ago, is that somehow I've gotten to like be much more comfortable with myself in that, like, you know how you mentioned like because we fear what happens when we're alone with ourselves. I no longer fear what happens when I'm alone with myself. And I think like that is something that like if I hadn't had these 10 months it wouldn't happen. So like yes, of course we naturally grow year to year based on our experiences that change year to year. But this year was so different that we grew a lot more than I think we would have had the pandemic not happened or had the political climate not been as it was. Because like sure, you know, maybe one year you have this one friend group, another year you took too heavy of a course load. Whatever. Like that's small changes and you learn from those things. But this year it's you're stuck at home with you and your family and no one else. How do you interact with people? Who do you reach out to in your spare time? Like what relationships do you choose to keep maintaining? And like what do you learn about yourself from those choices that you make? So I think the year being as different as it was gave us a lot of choices that we wouldn't normally have to make, which taught us more about ourselves, which in turn forced us to grow more. So, yeah.
I agree with that completely. I definitely think growth is natural with age, obviously, but I think that I grew this year in a way that I wouldn't have been able to like had the pandemic not happen, because I think that I definitely became more comfortable with being alone, and like I like to say that like I really got to know myself, because everyone like thinks they know themselves, but then you're alone for like months and months and you realize like, wow, I really did not know myself before and now I do. And that's such an awesome feeling. And I've never felt it before, like to the extent that I feel it now, like before the pandemic happened. So I think that was pretty unique to this year, but I definitely do think that it is possible to achieve that like over time. But I think that being alone for so long just really expedited it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you grow in different dimensions of self, right? And I don't think, I think the pandemic helped me realize like how much of my time was not my own, and like how much where I spent my time dictated how I grew. So like if you are spending like 6 hours at school a day, then like your like academic ability and like ability to memorize facts that you won't use is growing. But like versus like if you invested that time into like reflection and experimentation, you just naturally grow in like in a different way. And it, at least like for me, like I've been able to like make decisions and try things that I otherwise like would not have been able to, which is why I think like I was able to like grow in that, like in different aspects.
I also think it's both because, like everybody else is saying, as a person, especially most of us, we're teenagers. We're in a time of our life when we're growing the most. So every year we're going to grow more and more. But it's like an example when somebody close to you passes away. They pass away and you go through a process of grieving. And from that process, you learn. If they don't pass away, you don't have the knowledge that you had yet. It's the same with the pandemic and everything that's been happening in the year. If the pandemic never happened, we would have grown, yes, but not to the extent that most people did.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it was Thanasi's word association for acceleration. It's not to say that we wouldn't have had these realizations over time, but it just like accelerated it because we had so much time with ourselves. And back to what Ashley said about being able to spend our time in different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point.
Yeah, I agree with all you guys, but I just like wanted to add on like back that there's like a space, like I think it has to do a lot with how the Nazis brought up the constant stimulus, but basically the idea of distraction, like you have space, like before the entire pandemic, right? You're focused on the space, like you can't like get yourself out of the space because you're so focused in the space that you can't like take up any distraction. But then after the pandemic and everything, like you had this space to grow because like you're allowed to take on distractions because you have like more time essentially. And I just think that's like, yeah.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. That's like what I did. So after like March, over the summer, I actually found myself a lot more busy than I otherwise would have been. Like because even though like a lot of stuff like got canceled, I ended up signing up for a lot more stuff than I would have. And like I think that was like a learning experience in itself, right? Like I guess like now instead of things happening to you, like you have, I think it makes you realize like how much control over your time that you do have. And because of that, like in the fall, I was a lot more intentional in like what I signed up for, or like I hope I was a bit more intentional. I think I was a bit more intentional, but like, yeah, no, I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, on that point, like I found myself, I was talking to Gary a couple days ago, but like I find myself in two different spaces. Like when I'm distracted by something I really don't want to do, but I feel like I should do, i.e. school or college applications or whatever, I find myself like my brain is so much more confined than like after. So I moved out of my house into my apartment in September, but I moved out during the pandemic. And not like having so much alone time. It was like lonely for like a couple days, but then I realized like how much time I had to like read and listen and like do stuff that I wouldn't normally do because I was like felt trapped in my room, or I felt like I was being like pushed into having a conversation that I didn't want to have, or talking to my friends that I didn't really like. And so what I've seen is like I think the pandemic has also freed kids from school in a way that like I don't think anyone likes going to school, and even if they do, it definitely takes up so much of their energy that they could be using to do really cool stuff. And so yeah, I think that's a really interesting point of like, what do we do going forward? Can we give kids more time? Like, actually, I know Gary told me that you like didn't go to school for 2 years, like, and I was like, holy shit, that's so smart, like so intelligent. And I wonder if like more kids can do that.
I totally agree with like the last like three things that have been said about, like now you have more time to take on things and like, you have more energy to like do other stuff. I like signed up for probably like, I don't know, 10 clubs or something like that this year because like I found so many things that I realized were so cool that I hadn't even thought about before. Like I started doing medical research for our school research club, and I have found that to be so interesting. And then I also did I do this fundraiser every year, and I like threw myself behind that this year. So last year I think we raised some like 18,000 in like 13 weeks. This year I'm trying to do like 20,000 in half that time. So like, I like threw myself into these causes that like typically I have always been passionate about like the fundraiser that I'm doing, but I never had like this much energy to like expend on the passion because most of the time I'm here like, I have math around me. Like I have like 7 sheets of math around me at this point. But like, despite that, I still have like school starting later. I can wake up 2 hours earlier and get some work for that done or something like that. So that's definitely something I've noticed. And bouncing off of that, I would like to pose another question, and that is, um, do you got like what attributes of yourself or like values that you've had have changed during like quarantine? Because I feel like we've started realizing like different things about not only ourselves but what we care about. So, yeah.
That's a great question. I used to be like a micromanager, micro planner. Like, I planned my life so far ahead, like past grad school, all this stuff when I was already in high school. And I was a senior during all of this. So all of my plans, didn't happen. And I had all these plans and it would make me so anxious all the time because I was like, I need to do everything perfectly in order to accomplish these plans. And I don't have enough time to do everything I want to do. And then once the pandemic hit and all of my plans, my graduation, all of like my summer plans, even what college I ended up going to were affected by this, I kind of relaxed a little bit and I'm kind of now like living day by day, which I've never done before. But it's a lot more peaceful and a lot better for my mental health, I would say.
I think a value that I gained through all of this was, and I don't really know how I gained this, probably just through like, I don't know, getting to know myself and just like being alone and like thinking about what I value and like what's important to me. I really value happiness like over all else. And it kind of made me like reevaluate like the way I was doing things in my life because I was a junior last year. And so like I like my course load was way too heavy and like I just wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't happy. I didn't feel good like all the time. And once my life like completely stopped, I was like, oh my God, like what am I doing? If I'm not happy, like literally what am I doing? So just kind of made me think about that. And I realized that like that's something that I value over all else. And now in the future, I know to balance things better so that I can kind of keep my mental health in a good state.
I found myself in like the same situation where like when everything stopped, I was like, well, like what do I have left to do? And I was like, realized that I wasn't that happy because I was well, I was happy, but there's just a lot of things that were distracting me from like really being happy. And when I looked within myself and I was like trying to find the positive things, and like I started being a more positive person, I really started looking at the people I was like surrounding myself with, because I found that once I was able to like look at situations and try to find the best, I was like kind of seeing how like other people were breaking down those situations. And I realized that like the people I'd surrounded myself with were simply just the kids that I had classes with. And some of them just weren't the best people to be around because they were very negative people. And I just found that like this time is like, it's given me like, oh, how do I want to say it? Like, it's given me the time to look for like different attributes that I want in the people that I surround myself with. Because I feel like that's a big part, because like I can make myself happy when I'm by myself, but now that we're kind of like, I'm back in school 2 days a week, so I'm surrounded by those people again. So it's just been really helpful to like find the right people to surround myself with, because in this time I've like seen who's reached out and like who wants to like maintain those friendships.
For me, I feel like it's learning to stand up for myself more, because me, like in school, I was always afraid to tell people no because I felt like I was being mean. And I had to come to realize for myself that, for example, when it comes to homework, if somebody in my class is constantly asking me for homework, it's okay to give them homework once or twice. But if every single time they're asking for homework, I have to learn to say no and to set boundaries for myself and tell them, stop being afraid to tell them no, and stop letting people walk all over me, pretty much.
I think I've changed my relationship with like love and what love meant in my life. I think like there are a lot of like, I had this friend group that I had for 17 years. I'm 18, so 17 years, and we were all really close. But then I realized that I loved them, but there's a thing that, again, they were kind of toxic and pretty negative, and also they didn't really like some people know that life has meaning and really like value beautiful life, and like some people are just like walking through and they're like, oh, I kind of just like hate everything and I'm just doing it because everybody else does it. And like they were those type of people, and they would always be like making fun of the idealistic way that me and my friend talked about things. And so I realized that like, while I love those people, I loved being able to see the world in a better way more. And I thank God, with the pandemic, I kind of didn't have to like totally break away and be like, I don't want to be friends with you, you're uninvited for my birthday party type stuff. But I like slowly pulled myself away from them and like brought myself to a place where like other things I love that fulfilled me more. So yeah.
I agree with a lot of what people have been saying. I think if I had to pick like an overarching theme for what I learned about myself, I would just say like how much I was living my life for other people and based on what other people expected of me. Because when you go from, kind of like the life you design for yourself in high school in terms of like who you hang out with, your extracurriculars, when you're in it constantly, you're not questioning it. So when all of that stopped and I had the time to where everything stopped, and then having to go back because my school was in person from the start of the semester, where I live, basically everything was the same as it was. I realized that I wasn't actually enjoying the things that I had been doing and got fulfillment out of a year ago. So it was like I had this time where I was like getting to actually, like a lot of people have said, like fill my time with things that I actually found fulfilling and made me happy. And then having to go back to kind of like the default way really just helped me realize that I was wasting my time.
I definitely agree with you on that. Like the going back to the default isn't necessarily, perfect. A lot of my friends we've been in like school-wise lockdown since like March. So middle of March, and like we haven't like done hybrid or anything so far. And like a lot of my friends have been doing like polls on Instagram going like, hey, what's your preferred method of school, in person, hybrid, or online, or like don't care. And I think I'm one of the few people that honestly like I'm fine with the online method because I think so. I've again always been a relatively people person, so much so that most people describe me as an extrovert. But like I later learned that the definition of extrovert and introvert isn't like, are you like socially anxious or like socially proficient? It's actually, do you recharge by talking to people or do you recharge on your own? And I've always had that, like, I need 20 minutes just by myself after school because if not, I'm going to snap at somebody. So, just like being at home and, you know, having like joking arguments with my friends online, like that has been fine for me. Or like just meeting up masked outside in somebody's garage or something. Like, just like being on my own like that, like I really enjoy it. And I've also somebody mentioned this earlier, like redefining like the meaning of love in your life. I've always been a very passionate person, and like I throw myself behind like everything that I do because I fully believe that you know, if you don't throw yourself into everything you do, then why are you doing it? Like if you aren't willing to put all of your effort into it, then like why are you spending time on it? So I had a lot of friends before that were very superficial and just kind of just walk through life without actually caring about something, or like they'll start like some community service or like fundraising something because community service hours. Like if I ask somebody like, you know, what's your connection to the cause, they're like, oh, I don't have one, it's just community service hours. And I'm like, I mean, like that's fair, that's a legitimate reason to do it, but I've started realizing I really value passion in people, and I really value people who love what they do and who love life and find moments to be happy. Because everything on the outside looks so negative now, and if you can't find the good in it, then you're just constantly going to be talking about something negative and like drive people away. Because like, you know, you can't have those energy vampires around you all the time because you're going to start feeling drained. So yeah, I really, you know, have started to realize the amount that I value passion and like energy and like zest for life. So yeah.
Where are you all going to spend, like, let's say, right, the vaccine actually works and hopefully we're all back in the fall, like where are you going to shift where you spend your time, right? Because if you spend a lot of your time in school and then extracurriculars and then you're building your college application and then you apply to college and then you go to college, like that was the before. Will that be the after for you all, or are you like what has changed? What do you want to spend your time on when you, I guess, come out of quarantine?
For me, before the pandemic, I was like really inactive kind of person. Like basically, even if I commit myself to, I don't know, for example, dance, like I was like really afraid to put myself out there. Like even though it's like dance, you kind of have to perform and everything. But like I was still afraid to like put myself out there. But then after the pandemic and everything, like I feel like I stopped being afraid to put myself out there. So I feel like after the pandemic and everything, I feel like I'm just gonna continue to put myself out there because I feel like the more I put myself out there, the more like I grow as a person and the more I learn like experiences and everything. So I think that's something that's like gonna shift. Oh yeah.
Allison, I'd be curious as to why you think that that's the case.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, like why do you think that like going through the experience of the pandemic allowed you to have the confidence to put yourself out there more?
Because I feel like, you know, the whole entire world is like really chaotic right now, but then through the world, like people has become like really empathetic with each other. Like people start to understand each other about, you know, what happens to them or like the world issues and everything, just like try to understand people. So I feel like because of this whole like entire like pandemic and everything, like people started connecting with each other. And so that kind of like seeing it on social media, that kind of like helped me go forward a little. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's why I kind of like started to put myself out there more and like not be afraid of it. Because like in the past, I was like so afraid to put myself out there and everything.
I think that after the pandemic, I want to actively put more time towards like checking in with myself, because I was able to do that since I had time. But even when I don't have time, I want to make sure that I do it, even when I don't have like months upon months to just like sit in my room and think. I want to be able to like I said before, like keep my mental health in a good place. So I want to like continue to journal and continue to meditate and do all these like habits that I've cultivated even when I'm busy. And I think that's the hard part, to continue to do the good things even when you don't have all the time in the world to do them. But I'm going to commit to it, and I'm going to do it.
For me, I feel like I'm going to spend more time creating experiences and memories, because especially with the pandemic, a lot of people feel like they wasted an entire year because they haven't been able to go out and do so. So for me, it's spend more time creating memories that I'll have with me forever.
I think I am gonna, like, I'm not a scheduler. I'm a live life person. And I definitely agree with Ari where she says, like, you don't have all the time in the world, but you still have like certain things that you want to like make sure you do. And I definitely want to make sure I spend some time growing in the way that I want to, because I realized like 2 years ago I did this weird like backward growth thing where I unlearned a quality that I'd always had, that somehow I got elected as ASB president, and I'd always been a very blunt person, and I told it like it was, and like I always told the truth, like no matter what, and like I didn't like change my words or like sugarcoat things, because like it's not what people wanted to hear. Um, and I started becoming a lot more of a pushover, I think. And I realized that I kind of want to unlearn that, because I did that because of like, I don't know, pressure from, I guess, outside sources to like, I don't know, just like conform to like the whole like be nice, don't be like overboard or like pushy or anything. So yeah, I think I realized that I kind of want to unlearn that, because I need to learn again how to put up boundaries for myself and like, be this assertive like person who like knows what she wants and like, doesn't hide that from people. So I want to like spend time asking myself questions about me, like, are you happy with who you are right now? Because I realize I am not happy with who I was in 8th grade anymore, because I was doormat and I don't like that. So yeah, I'm gonna do my best to like, ask myself, are you sure you're happy with who you are? And like fix myself if I'm not. So yeah.
I think for me, it's kind of like what a lot of people have said, but like finding meaningful friendships. I was in college for 2 weeks before I came back home, but during that time I made and over Zoom, I've made so many friends that are actually interested in the things that I'm interested in and have similar values to me, which was like the first time in my life that I've had people who've gone through the same experiences and have the same like life goals. And I've also met people that have completely opposite life goals, but I'm kind of like figuring out who I am through these people. And I think I've had some really like adult conversations, which I haven't been able to have before. So I think just like connecting with people who are going to help me grow and that I can help grow, instead of just like wasting my time with people who like don't want my time, if that makes sense. So kind of like figuring out what can help like me grow as a person and how I can help others grow. I think that's like one of the biggest things that I want to change post pandemic.
Yeah, there's like my friends and I joke around, like there's these people in your life that are like filler characters, like how you would regard like in a movie, like the people in the back, and they kind of don't add anything, but they allow you to distract yourself from the fact that you have nothing else better to do. Which is like that's at least that's how I felt. Like I would definitely like a year ago, people, one of them in this call would send me podcasts and I'd be like with my friends all the time and I would never listen to them. And looking back, I'm like, holy shit, I was so dumb because what? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Gay. And I was like, wow, I was like so dumb because I love listening to them now. But those people provided me no benefit to my personality, to my knowledge. They didn't expand my worldview. I literally got like 0 out of those friendships, but I was still spending most of my time there. And it was like, I would equate it to the same reason like people are like addicted to drugs, or people are addicted to their phones, because it like fills a void that they don't yet know how to fill themselves. So that's how I saw those like filler characters, and I'm really disappointed myself for not seeing it earlier. But
I think a lot of what you said also has to do with circumstance. And I feel like that's also changed because of quarantine. Like a lot of people said like quarantine gave them an excuse to like cut off friendships or kind of end friendships or like help them figure that out. And I feel like a lot of people are just friends with people out of circumstance. Like they go to your school, they're in your class, there's someone you can eat lunch with. And I feel like once you're able to like find your time alone and figure out like what you truly value and stuff like that, you don't have to be friends with those people out of circumstance. So I feel like, I guess, being able to have your own company makes you have better company because you're able to pick and choose because you don't just want randoms.
yeah, I just wonder how like we get to the point where not everybody feels this way, but like school is where most of the friendships come from, right? And like you have those circumstantial friendships, and you don't waste 4 years, but like you spend a lot of your time with people who don't fulfill you. So I just wonder how we get to the point in society of like when people can be like, okay, this is what I want out of a friendship, like that level of wisdom, I guess, to know that, because I think knowing it a lot younger is super helpful, at least to me.
I guess like something my mind just jumps to is that like the way we structure schools, like essentially like tells us like why do we still put people like in classes with people who are like the same grades as them? Like, are there better like ways to clump people together? Or like I mean, I feel like in order for people school does define so many of our friendships. And like school plays, I mean, like if you're spending 6 hours a day in school, like you're spending 6 hours with the people in your classes, and like if those people are chosen for you, then you have no like agency over like who you spend time with and who like becomes your friends, unless like you intentionally like do not have friends in school. But like I just like I think a big part of that starts with just giving more people like options in where they're spending their time learning and growing.
I think also definitely what Lara said earlier about circumstance, because, like, frankly, at this point, I'm pretty sure my grade has like some 600 students in it. And like 400 of them were from my previous school, and like the fact that we have 7 periods all in our grade more or less, that you just get like flip-flopped among them, and like I knew every single person out of my old school by name, and like that's a lot of people to know. And I feel like out of all of those people, there were maybe 8 people that I actually like wanted to be friends with, or that actually added value to my life. But like, like you don't need to know those 400 other people. And it's definitely the circumstance of it and how we structure school, because half the time I just was friends with people because like I didn't have lunch with like the people I would regularly hang out with. So I was just like, hey, you're in my class, we both know each other, let's just eat lunch together. So something like that. So I feel like, yeah, I definitely agree on the whole like, circumstance, how school is structured, that kind of thing. Because I don't think we'd be in those filler friendships otherwise. And it's just also kind of like a matter of convenience. Like if you have a friend in your math class and you like don't know how to do a math problem, then you like need a person you can like reach out to be like, hey, can you explain this to me without being like weird about it, I guess. So yeah. So convenience and circumstance is what I'm gonna say is the main thing.
I've been summoned by Josh, so I have to run, but you all are so amazing. This was like the coolest thing I've done, and it was a great way to slow down after a really interesting day. So thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, Thanasi.
Sarah, anything you want to weigh in on this question?
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot about like circumstance, like the classes you're in. And I found myself last year, like before we were sent home, like joining a lot more clubs so I could find those people that like I have like the same things, like same interests. And I did find myself like distancing like my life and like myself from those friendships that I just had out of convenience. And I think quarantine helped with that because I had started to like find those people I had similar interests with, so I was able to like keep up with them during quarantine.
Madison, should we go to reflection?
Yeah, so we can go to the reflection. I'm going to go ahead and send the link in the Zoom chat for all these notes so you all can take a moment to look over them. And when you have a reflection that you want to say, just shout it out and I'll write it down.
Literally about anything related to this conversation, the topics, the actual like format of groupthink. Yeah.
I would just like to, I don't know. I'm glad that everyone like had such personal growth during quarantine and stuff like that. And I'm glad to hear that um you guys enjoyed the time. For me, it was a really tough time. I would not say that I handled it well, but that was just because I felt like I was robbed of things that I was waiting for a long time. And that's just like circumstance of like me being a senior. But it makes me like hopeful that you guys had a good experience and that you guys learned more about yourselves and more about how to like better your mental health and stuff, because I think what you've learned you can pass on to others. And I think that it's really good to learn that earlier because I had to learn that through different ways when I was in high school. So I'm glad that you guys kind of got like a pause and you had a positive experience is what I'm trying to say. So like, I'm glad that you guys got that.
Regarding just the conversation in general, I really applaud everyone for like being honest and like being vulnerable because it allowed me to learn a lot more about you, which I really enjoyed. And like, I don't know many of you, so I really enjoyed this conversation because I found a lot of like common experiences and like common opinions. So yeah, thank you for like being honest, even though like we might not know each other that well. So I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I just want to say that I found it kind of, I guess, shocking to see that there were other people who actually enjoyed 2020 like me, because a lot of people, they're always like, I hate 2020, it was so bad. And I'm like, I actually kind of liked it because of how much I got to grow as a person. And it's good to see that there are other people like that as well.
I definitely agree with that. I honestly think that a lot of times I was like afraid to like say that I didn't hate 2020 because everyone's like, "Oh, 2020 sucks. Cancel 2020." But like I'm glad to see that there are other people who also think the same way. Because frankly, I grew a lot in 2020. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about others, and I honestly think that um it's like the pandemic is terrible and so is COVID-19, but like I'm glad that something good came out of it. And I'm glad that there are people that recognize that something good. And I'm glad that it left a positive experience on anybody's life, because, it has left such a negative effect on so many. So.
Yeah, I just really the same. It's really refreshing to see that like other people took something positive out of the year, because I'm like a small town, like 70 people in my grade. And I feel like a lot of people have that like small town mindset where it's just like walking through life, just getting it done, not really enjoying it. And it was just really nice to see that like other people grew.
I just want to say that it was really how do I say it? It was really, really thoughtful. Well, no, it's not thoughtful. Well, wait, let me rephrase it. Um, it was really interesting to hear you guys' experience because I feel like everyone has different experiences and everything, and it allows people to learn from each other based on each individual's experiences, which is very different. So I really appreciate that.
Ashley, do you mind sharing your experience? You don't get into too much detail, but about doing groupthink with family.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm just
I mean,
like, in case it might inspire some people to try this out with some friends.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like a lot of people have touched on like this type of like dialogue, like where like you can be like vulnerable and authentic. Like it really helps you connect with people and like get to know people on a deeper level. So last week on Sunday, I did my first ever group think with my younger sisters. And yeah, and we literally just chose a topic. It was a conversation fueled by people's questions. Um, if you're like, I mean, I don't necessarily recommend like importing this format just and like just dropping it into other communities you're part of, but like definitely channeling this, I don't know, like spirit of like, yeah, spirit of like slowing down. Like I guess something that I like thought was kind of funny was just at the beginning of like this group think where like everyone like is, I don't know, it just felt really fast. Which like is really good, but I feel like in like a lot of our calls, at least like Zoom calls, I feel like it's always driven by like an agenda and like you get in and then you like talk about X, Y, and Z and then like you get out and it's just very fast paced. And I feel like it's just really nice to have like this type of like space where it's okay to slow down and where it's okay to explore like deeper feelings and things that you might not you know have space to talk about in your day to day. So yeah, highly encourage creating some of these spaces like with family, with like current groups of friends. It has really helped me deepen my relationship with my sisters already, and so I'm really excited to like continue doing this. And so we're gonna do it weekly now, which is really cool.
Ashley, I'd be curious to know how the format changed when you did it with your sisters.
Yeah, so I was actually brain dropping on this, but I think when I did it in person, like I think it's really like I think what one of the design choices we made for groupthink was like writing things down. It allows people to like see like what they're being said like on paper, so it kind of like validates what people are saying. Like it was kind of awkward to do that in person with my sisters. Like my sisters asked me if I was like taking minutes, and it was like, no, I am not taking minutes. But like I think it was just like a bit more different because it was in person, and so it kind of just naturally like called for me to like look in their eyes and like put away my device and like connect more authentically. And so we like decided we were going to like have a set time like in the beginning, which is more so like just talking, and then have a different set time where like we reflect on that conversation, and that's when we're going to like take notes and stuff. And then we just called it something different. So like we called it a sleepover, and we like sleep over someone's room. And that's where we do this. Yeah, but just tiny choices. Like honestly, just like experiment and like mess around with it and change things little pieces at a time, and it'll turn into something really cool.
Thanks for sharing, Ashley. Anyone have any final reflections?
I guess I can go ahead and say it's basically echoing things people have already said, but Nayeli touched on, I didn't realize that so many other people had like grown so much and appreciated the experience that they had throughout 2020. And also I really appreciated Thanasi's question about do we grow from year to year, or and did we actually grow more than we did in previous years in 2020? I hadn't thought about it like that before, and of course everyone's responses about it being both. Just a really interesting conversation, and I enjoyed having all of you here, and I hope that you come to one in the future because I just genuinely enjoyed hearing from all of you. All right. And so have a great rest of your night, and I will hopefully see you again soon. Bye.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.